Welcome to On Cam Ready. I'm Jamie Maglietta, a TV veteran who's here to help you produce up your content so you can become more alluring to the press. On this week's episode,
my number one tip is to start sharing your stories on social media and using it as a storytelling platform and as a media outlet in addition to a sales platform, a marketing platform, or a self-promotional platform. Number two is research.
Research is essential. On this video podcast, we are bringing you experts to help you brainstorm ideas and can offer you TV insider knowledge to help you with your own research. I'm also showing you a little bit more behind the scenes so you can get a better sense of what it takes to create content, video podcast, or, just edit videos in general. By the way, if you do decide to launch your own video podcast or podcast and you want a platform, check out the description below. I am affiliated with Riverside, and anyone who signs up using my link supports this podcast financially. So thank you. Using your social media platforms as your own media channel is a great way to help promote your services, expertise, and personality. Those who show up, glow up. I say it often. And if you show up online, chances are you're going to start attracting the media. If you offer expertise and value, that pertains to the discussions and the conversations that the media is having. What you need to really do is figure out what's in the news and how can I weigh in. If you are a lawyer and there's court cases taking place, you should be taking to your social media channels and maybe explaining what an indictment is or weighing in with your legal opinion. By putting yourself out there, you become a part of the conversation and could potentially be picked up by the press without even having to pitch yourself. Being able to say you appeared on ABC or Fox News Channel or the BBC really does help legitimize your expertise in whatever service you offer. So on this podcast, we will help you not only produce up your content, but potentially attract a wider audience. Our guest for this conversation today is Aliza Friedlander, a former TV news producer who is now a boutique PR strategist. We connected through LinkedIn, and what made me want to book her is the fact that not only was she a TV producer, but she also gave a TED Talk. Here's a clip from her speech.
At one point in time, my road was straightforward. I had a goal of being a producer at a top morning show in New York City. But when the goals changed, I realized that straightforward road wasn't getting me to where I wanted to be. When I got to those forks in the road, the ones that made me feel like I needed to either pick a career in media or the family life of my dreams, I took none of them. And you have that option too. Swerve. Take the road you might not know existed, one where you can have the benefits of both the career track and the mommy track.
She took the off-ramp to entrepreneurship. She swerved, and her message resonated with me. When booking guests, I am always looking for a connection, a story that may resonate with not just myself, but the audience, or the audience I desire to have. I've been in TV news for over 20 years, but for nearly 20 years across major networks. And whenever you're booking a guest, you're really looking for that person who's going to really truly connect with the viewers, or to bring in viewers that you're hoping will start showing up. Right now, I'm a mom. I'm working from home. I'm trying out YouTube and sharing how I'm doing it online to help you overcome some of those hurdles that you may think are there, but aren't really that bad. So before I get to Aliza, let me just remind you of my background and what I'm doing now. I am a freelancer offering production management services, mainly in unscripted, but also large-scale live events. Since I'm out on my own, I've decided I might as well learn YouTube and vlogging and video podcasting and podcasting so I can expand on my services and help clients. It's my side hustle, or what people may call my side hustle. Maybe it will become my full-time one day, but right now I'm a freelance producer and I love it. I love dating. It's enjoyable at this point in time when this posts. As a TV producer, I knew when I launched a business, I needed content. And what better way to create content than with a video podcast? Even Gary Vee just recently said, if you're not podcasting, then you need to be. And it can be a lot easier than some may tell you. You don't need to spend a ton of money, and you can do it from your phone, and you can do it from your computer. And I will show you. But as a producer, I really couldn't imagine launching a business without content. So having a video podcast gives me an opportunity to provide you with value, me with content to share on social media and across platforms to potentially build an audience to get people to listen. I mean, you don't want to have a podcast and have no one listen. So you need to put yourself out there, either with a newsletter, an email, thought leadership on LinkedIn. You need to be doing something. You can't just be putting a podcast together. You need to have an audience and build it. And many of them, if you look at all these top podcasters, are on Instagram or TikTok. They're putting themselves out there. The same thing goes for you. If you want to be a guest on a podcast or a TV show, you need to be out there. That is why On Cam Ready is going to help you come up with ideas for social and give you the inspiration to potentially glow up. And that's exactly what our guest did. Aliza showed up, and she's now a business owner who lobbies for her clients. She isn't out front and center like she was during her TED Talk, but she's pushing herself to be in front of the camera. So this conversation is between two people who are used to being behind the scenes, collaborating to provide you with some tips so that you can attract the media. Here's part of our conversation. It was edited due to time. I had a cold, so I was coughing a lot. Here you go. Aliza is with us now. Aliza, oh my gosh, I can't believe you spoke at a TED Talk. Like, first off, what was that like?
It was awesome and terrifying. Maybe terrifying and then awesome. I will say the curator that I had and the TED Talk that I did, the organization was so put together and we had so much help and so much guidance. I worked on that talk from January until I gave it in June, every single week. Once a week, I met with my speaker coach, practicing, going through it. It was terrifying, but it was also awesome and exhilarating, and I want to do more speaking after it. And I was also 10 weeks pregnant. So
oh my gosh,
I'm really happy I was able to keep it all together. I was super sick in my first trimester, and I told my curator and my speaker coach, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to be at all the rehearsals this weekend. I felt so sick, and somehow the body just knows that you got to be on. And it was the one weekend in my first trimester that I could actually like be out of bed and eat and be on stage. And so I didn't projectile vomit all over the stage, which was really awesome. So yeah, I was 10 weeks pregnant.
And I was going to say, you had a really great suit. It was very flattering.
Thank you. It was
10 weeks
elastic.
pregnant, found a great suit.
It was
good
elastic.
Energy,
confidence.
confidence.
Elastic waist. So that was really great. And nobody knew I was pregnant, and I still I'm now starting to be like, oh yeah, I'm looking back and I was 10 weeks pregnant. I'm like, that's crazy.
But the messaging that you shared, especially knowing that you're 10 weeks pregnant, talking about the forks in the road as mothers that are, career focused, ambitious women, it must really sit with you uniquely because here you are on a TED Talk stage talking about motherhood as someone who's pregnant. So, I mean, that must have just been a really, truly amazing experience for you.
It really was. And it was also, my dad joked as I was practicing my talk, because I practiced constantly anywhere I got a chance.
So in your talk, you talked about swerving. So what did you wind up swerving into?
So I wound up swerving into, currently right now, the CEO and founder of a boutique PR agency. And so I do traditional and non-traditional public relations. And really, my definition of public relations is storytelling and using your voice and your skills to get a story and a message out there. So you can be a brand that has a story to tell, you can be an expert that has a story to tell, but you really have to focus on the stories that are taking place, both your stories and the stories that are happening around you. So not just what you want to say and what you think is important, but leaning into trends or leaning into what's happening in the news cycle and really taking that whole concept and seeing how it can apply to you, your story, your idea, your brand, to get your message out there, to get your product out there, to get your expertise out there. And then I also look at the other side of things, and you can see this return on PR now as well through affiliate PR and social media and different areas. So PR is no longer, in my mind, just this sort of woo-woo, like, oh, you're going to get some news hits and brand awareness. It is very big on brand awareness and very big on visibility, very big on credibility. But there's also another side of it now that you can see where those dollars sometimes are going. And so that's what I've swerved to. But the swerving has happened constantly. This is where I swerved to and where I have landed right now at this point in time.
And, but you weren't always in PR. So, she talks about this in her TED Talk. I introduced her. You know a little bit about her. But, Aliza, why don't you tell us a bit more about your TV producing career and the trajectory you were on?
Yeah, so I swerved, like you said, now to PR. That's where I've landed at this point in time. I started as a morning show producer and as a TV producer. But even in my TV life and even in all of that, looking back now, I was constantly swerving and I was constantly looking at where to go from where I was, and my trajectory was not linear. And I didn't, even in TV, take that linear, traditional path from super small market to mid-size market to big-size market and grow my career that way. I started in DC. I started at a station in DC as a writer, and I worked my way up within the station, and I ended up being in DC and Baltimore for my entire career. So I ended my career as a local morning news show producer in Baltimore. I still am in Maryland. And I then swerved to be a full-time stay-at-home mom. I was working 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Wasn't going to be able to do it. Not a sustainable lifestyle for myself. I was always so impressed with the anchors and the women who I worked with who were able to go that path. It was not a path for me. And so I swerved to be a stay-at-home mom, got a master's in emerging media. So I always have wanted to kind of stay on top of what was happening in media and be able to take those swerves and those turns and not that linear pathway to say, when my kids are older, I think I am going to want to go back to work, but I'm not going to be able to be a TV producer. So what can I do with my TV producer skills as media is expanding? Now, this was almost 10, 11 years ago. And so everybody who was like, you're getting a master's in emerging media, what does that even mean? emerging media is now all of the media that we consume today.
The two of us are TV producers at heart, right? That's our training.
Yep.
TV production is the base of where we begin our careers. And when you start to look at social media, publicity, entrepreneurship, having had that experience, there's a lot of overlap. A lot of our skills apply to these different mediums in unique ways. And the hustle that we've learned over those years also is very applicable. One thing we talked about was how TV production and the TV producer mindset could be applied to more of a social media strategy. What are your thoughts on applying those skills to building a brand online?
So this is something that I am really passionate about and that I talk about a lot when I do go out and talk. Like I said, was 10 weeks pregnant at my TEDx talk, so I sort of have swerved back a little and taken some time away to be with the baby and to be with my other kids. And again, swerving back to that stay-at-home mom type idea, but still full-time working as well. Your social media channels now should be looked at as your own media outlets for people, for brands. And you talk about this all the time. You should be putting out on your social media the stories that you want to tell to traditional media. So using social media as that first step to getting that bigger publicity or bigger PR or bigger reach is how you should be looking at these channels. So I look at social media less as a sales tool and more as a storytelling tool and a way to share those stories. You no longer need the gatekeepers of traditional media to tell you that you have a story to share, to tell you that you have a brand that is worthy of people knowing, to tell you that you have a story that people need to hear, and to tell you that, okay, yes, you can be on the outlet. I think that you start at social and then you go to traditional. Because a lot of times traditional TV producers and traditional media outlets are going to go back to your socials to see if you can talk on camera, if you're video ready, if you actually do have a story to tell or can share, or you are just promoting a product or yourself. Because if you are just promoting, that is a commercial. Or that is a paid partnership or an advertorial or native content, whatever you want to call it, branded content, all synonymous. So they're going to check all of that out before they bring you on to a station or before they write up a piece about you. So see what's going on in the news cycles, see what's happening around you, see what those trends are, and see how you can apply that to your expertise, your storytelling, your business, your brand, and start telling those stories on your social media channels so that when the producers or the writers or the editors do go to your social channels, they're saying, oh, they just pitched me a story about how working moms are now in the workforce at a greater rate than they were pre-pandemic. We really thought that they weren't going to be coming back. New numbers have recently come out that moms with kids 5 and under are now in the workforce at a greater rate than they were. So that trend, how can we talk about that trend? And how can maybe my brand or my expertise or my business play into that trend? What's the story there? And pitch yourself as the expert, even if you are product-based. Because by default, whenever you get media coverage, your product, your brand, your name, your business is going to be in there because they're going to title. Think about it in the way that you would a TV segment or a TV show and tell that story with the beginning, middle, and end. Show the visuals, show how you can talk, show how you can be of service and really help their viewers and their audience. Because at the end of the day, these media outlets, their goal is to get eyeballs on them and to make money themselves.
Like if you don't have a presence on social media, you're not commenting on Twitter, you're not sharing an opinion, you're not offering the credibility needed to warrant you as a guest, it makes it harder for you to sell yourself as a guest. And I just think to the point you're making, I agree with it all. And I just want to add the whole credibility element. When she's saying to like tap into what's happening in the news, don't just have an opinion to have an opinion. You need to have an opinion that's supported by credibility. Why do you have that opinion? Why are you the expert on this? And why does someone need to book you over someone else? Like you could really start to tap into whatever audience you want if you craft out the content with your business and your credibility in mind. And I just love that you're talking about this. I think more people need to. What people listening, if you're looking at trying to pitch yourself, can learn and say you can't afford like a boutique publicist. The points that she's making are things that you can apply. So when you are trying to think about your pitch, how do you find building the relationship with the media works best? Do you personally, as a boutique, have those connections to the media that makes it easier for them to respond? Or do you find like you need to really fine tune your hooks and your headlines and your details off the top of your pitches to really lure them into the clients that you work with? What do you think is the formula that could really benefit listeners if they're trying to figure out, how do I go about this?
So I think the number one thing is building that relationship. And yes, we do have the relationships, but at the end of the day, public relations is about the relationships that you have with other people. That doesn't mean that I can build a relationship necessarily better than you can build a relationship. It just takes time to build a relationship. Think about it in terms of a friendship or family, not family because family's blood, but even family. But think about it in terms of really a friendship. Let's say you're a new mom and you go to the playground and you meet somebody out there and you hit it off at the playground and you exchange phone numbers. What's the next step? Like, what are you going to do next after meeting this new friend? You're probably going to send them a text message or leave the playground being like, it was so great to meet you. You're going to probably follow them on social media. You're going to probably start chit-chatting casually. You're not going to go all in right away and be like, hey, let's get together today, tomorrow, and next Friday and next Saturday. It was so great to meet you. I had the best time. You're going to ease your way into the relationship, and eventually that relationship is going to build on itself. The media is the same way. Media are people. Journalists are people. We're all humans and we're all people. So you're not going to read a story necessarily and say, I'm going to email this person and tell them the 15 things about me and why I'm going to be the best fit for their show. And then I'm going to continue to email them every single day until I hopefully get a response. Ease into it. Build the relationship. If you see a story, if you see something that somebody is doing that you think you could be a fit or help them, reach out and just say, I read your story. I saw this piece today. I loved what you're doing. Thank you so much for covering this topic. And then in a couple of days, reach out again. Be like, I saw this other piece, or I'm really liking, I keep going back to this. I've shared it with my friends. I'm doing XYZ.
What are maybe 3 tips that you would give someone who is looking to build a rapport and put themselves out there to attract the media?
So my first tip would be look at social media as a media channel and put the stories out there that you want to tell. So if you are a brand for working moms, let's say you put out products for working parents, which is one of my clients right now. Look beyond the product and say, what's happening in the world right now for working parents? So talk about it, like talk about the stories, and then go to the traditional media outlets and say, this is what I do, or this is the story. This is what is out there. This is who it's impacting. Make sure that you are able to share who it's impacting and why that is a good fit for them and their station or their .com or their newspaper, because they're going to want to make sure that people are going to click on it or watch it or read it. So that would be the number one. My number one tip is to start sharing your stories on social media and using it as a storytelling platform and as a media outlet, in addition to a sales platform, a marketing platform, or a self-promotional platform. Number two is research, and really make sure you're consuming the media that you want to be in and that you want to be a part of. So make sure that you're watching the shows that you maybe think would be a good fit for you, or that you're reading the .coms, and look at who's writing those. Look at who the reporter is for those. Look at who is putting those stories out there. And then once you do, find those names, which you can easily find you look at the bylines or you listen to their sign off on TV. Google, look and see what else they cover. Look and see where they're at. Look and see what stories they're telling. Look and see how you can help them. I would say the third would be to ask for advice and ask for help, and, reach out to somebody who is a professional in it, even if it's not to hire them to do it for you, even if it's joining a program, or, just learning the nuances of pitch writing, media writing, what it is that you need, because there's so much that goes into it.
Well, on that note, let me just add a few things.
Yeah.
She brought up a good point about putting yourself out there, creating that value. I swear, during breaking news, if it was a terror attack and I had a terror expert that we had a relationship with text me or email me and say, hey, I actually have information. I'm going to run it. I can run some sources and confirm it and appear on camera in 20 minutes. That person most likely got on air. And I would hustle to get them on air, because that relationship is being formed. And it's a know, like, and trust that you're building with these people, with the journalists, as an expert. And that's how you have to look at it. And when you're looking at your social media and you're looking at your brand, keeping that in mind while you're relationship building, while you're posting, is going to make you stand out. And that's what is a very key thing that I'll add as like just a piece of advice to anyone listening. And then the other point on the sound bites. So we were talking ahead of time, and both of us are producers. Now we're both on camera. She had to prepare for her TED Talk, which was, as we mentioned, a very huge moment. But there's preparation that goes in, like that media training does provide, that does help you create those sound bites. And a lot of it, and I'm sure you did this for the TED Talk, is really preparing, trying to think of all the questions, all the answers that you would potentially need to address in that conversation with whatever medium you're trying to get onto, or a part of, or a topic you're trying to be an expert on. When you were preparing for your TED Talk, I would imagine you were saying you were writing it every day. Is that kind of what you would do if you were to go on camera again now, to prepare to be on camera? What might be the steps you would take or have advised others to do?
Honestly, so what I learned from my TED Talk was that speaking and doing that TED Talk, I almost had to unlearn everything that I learned for media, because you have to be so visual and have so much detail. I mean, my TED Talk had to be 12 minutes.
Yeah.
So I had to stand up there and talk for 12 minutes, which for somebody who comes from TV, I'm used to
like eternity.
A minute, 15 seconds, a minute and 30 seconds. So if I showed you what my TED Talk started as to what my TED Talk became, they finally, my speaker coach had to be like, you need to stop thinking in terms of TV and short, and you have to start being flowy and flowery and prosy, the opposite of what I'm told to do for TV. So I think what I would do,
right? You had to put it in.
You have to prepare, and you have to also, and I think that's a really important point also, is you have to going back to the research and knowing your audience and knowing what it is you're preparing for. So I was preparing for a TEDx talk that's going to go on YouTube and the TEDx website, and it had to be 12 minutes, and that's the audience that I'm reaching. They're going to listen for 12 minutes. At the same time, the most important parts do need to stay at the front. You still want to build it in a way that you're bringing them in so that they stay for the 12 minutes, because that's a really long time. But anybody who's going to a TED Talk is going to listen and knowing they're getting some piece of long form content. Anyone who's watching the news or putting out a story on social media, you're going to want to be really concise, because the audience that you have there is only going for the short, concise bits. So you got to know who you're preparing for. You got to research. You got to know who you're reaching out to for journalists when it comes to pitching. I think the other really important part about the research and preparing, and you mentioned, Jamie, the relationship of getting somebody to text you during breaking news. I think the other thing when you start thinking like a journalist or a producer is not only looking at what's going on in the news cycle that relates to you and for yourself, but also what's going on in the news cycle in general. So if there is an attack, or if there is a hurricane or something that will take the resources of these journalists, that's not a great day to reach out to somebody for an evergreen story or some sort of piece that could go at any point. Unless you have something that is related to the breaking news or the topic that is taking place, you're going to want to push off your pitch. You're going to want to say, okay, I'm going to hold off. I will wait until things quiet down, because I can guarantee you're not going to hear back from somebody. And the only thing that it is going to do is they're going to maybe get a little bit frustrated.
And kind of write them off too.
Exactly. And
because I would get pitches. It would be, oh gosh, there'd be so many interesting pitches, and you're dealing with breaking news. It's CNN. Like, we're not sitting here talking about hot dog eating contests. So there's really, I'm not the person for you to the point of research. And then it just kind of makes you like, well, I don't really want to build a relationship with that PR company because they clearly don't know who I am. So there is that element of, just like if you were at a party, to the point you're making, if you don't get off on the right foot, you're most likely not going to stay in touch. The other thing I'll say that I always liked was, if you're on Twitter, DM the person, and to the point you were making, like or comment, DM them on Twitter, say, I really like what you do. This is my expertise. I'm going to start talking about this topic next week because I see this coming up. Reach out if you have any questions or if you need any comments. I'm happy to work with you. Trying to just be the person that's out front, because some of these journalists are looking for new sources, new guest ideas, and to really ease in. That's another great way. Before we switch gears and go back to the fact that you podcast as well, or you were working on a podcast, I just wanted to just really hone in on the fact that you're working from home. You are someone who has swerved, TV producer, social media strategist, publicist, swerving and going and hustling. And in this culture right now, that's a lot of what I feel people need to be applying to these media channels by diversifying and putting out not just, I'm only this, I'm everything. And I know it sounds broad, but what I'm loving is when I see a legal analyst weigh in on Trump one day on social media, just explaining what's going on. And then the next day, weighing in on another legal story, straight to camera, like delivering, like, this is what you need to know. And then also sharing a bit about their work-life balance. And I just find that this new way of incorporating the news with the lifestyle, with the promos, like you were saying, the commercial elements,
really is a format that more people do need to tap into. And I just wanted to emphasize that before we move on to podcasting, because you really do know so much about this and you have such a wealth of knowledge to share. And again, we're talking with Aliza Friedlander. Please look her up. Her information's in the bio. All right. So she has also been working on, do you want to weigh in on that?
I do.
Yeah, go for it.
Like I said, I don't talk in sound bites. So I do. I think it's also really important what you're saying. I think that shows a level of, again, vulnerability and humanity. And it allows you to be able to build a relationship with somebody. So one of the main things too that I look for, especially when I'm building relationships with journalists, is what is it about them that I can connect to? Or what is it about them that my clients can connect to? So even if it's as simple and as basic as, let's say, I have a client who went to University of Maryland, and this is a journalist at a local news station in North Carolina who also went to University of Maryland. There's a touch point that you can relate to, that they can connect on. And so I think by sharing all of that, you're building these relationships and really getting to know somebody. And you're being something for everybody in the sense that you're a legal analyst, let's just use your example, who's weighing in on different topics. But at the end of the day, you're a legal analyst. So your expertise is the law and the legal side of things. So anything that's going to come up, you're going to be able to talk about it if it falls under your legal expertise. You're not going to go out and say, and now I'm going to talk about accounting today. So you're always falling under the legal umbrella. I'm always falling under the media umbrella, but there are just so many different tentacles to media. You're always falling under the media umbrella, but there are so many different tentacles to media, even down to the things that you wear and the way that you prepare and we were talking about your Get Ready With Me videos and the tools that you use and how you style yourself. That's all media related. You have to think about all of that when you go on. And so I just wanted to
that's great.
Also.
And it's all about the media training. So like what you get with media training is really learning more about your delivery, your presentation, your color scheme, how to style yourself so that you do come across as more appealing to the legacy groups, but also that you are seizing every opportunity online and that you're making the most of every touch point that you brought up.
And it's really scary. I was going to say, it's really scary. It's really scary to put yourself out there. It's really scary to be vulnerable. Believe me, I am not an expert at that. I'm still trying every single day to put myself out there. I spent, I think, my entire life worrying what other people thought. I spent my entire life feeling like, I'm not really good enough to do X, Y, and Z. Or like, I see this person who's out there doing this, but they're more talented than I am. I'm not that great. And I still struggle with that. But when you do start sharing and when you do start talking about it, you realize that like, okay, other people are struggling with that too. Other people worry about that also. Like, I need to believe in myself and I need to know that I am good enough and I am just as good as anybody else out there. But it's scary. But you know what? Talking about it, I'll get 5 other people who are like, I feel that way too. Like, and it's the same thing with parenting. It's the same thing with everything. It's like you say something and then you realize that 15 other people feel the same way, but nobody's saying it because everybody's nervous to say it.
And that's kind of the whole point here, right? Like, we're producers. We're not on cam ready, but we're on cam ready because we're putting on the hat, we're putting in the confidence, and we're going for it. I really feel like there's this element of confidence that needs to kind of be infused in more of us as we're moving into this new space of social media. It's broadening. I mean, people are cutting back on linear every day. I don't have cable anymore. I'm streaming. So streaming, social media, that's the future. If you're not on camera, you're not ready. And that's really what it comes down to.
And we can connect over the being producers and connect but you know what? Like I said, I was like, I'm so glad I see you in a tank top because I wanted to wear a tank top, but I can't tell you for 15 minutes before I got on this call, I was like, she's always so on camera ready. Like she always has such great outfits. I want to make sure that I look right and that like I am the whole package because I know that's your expertise. At the same time, I also know that you're a producer and that we come to this from the same mindset and that we're both moms and we have so much more that I'm like, she's definitely going to be more on camera ready than I am at times, but we can have this conversation and we can talk about it. And I feel so comfortable because we have those touch points and it is, but, and I know that we have similar mindsets and yeah, it is two producers on here. And I'm like, but she's so confident when she goes on camera and talks. And I feel like I'm less confident because I'm so used to being a producer behind the scenes. And when I said that to you, you were like, I'm so used to being a producer behind the scenes. Like, we feel like,
you know, this to me has been a whole new, you know, you're spending years behind the scenes, but years behind the scenes where I would be in an anchor's ear or in a reporter's ear saying, hey, move the hair behind your ear. Oh, you look great. That's a good flattering color. However, your bra strap's showing. Let's adjust this. Your lighting isn't that great. I need to move you. So when you're doing that every day, working with anchors and reporters, and you start to pick up a lot. And, you know, I just feel that after nearly, almost 20 years of being in that control room, you do start to understand and embody it yourself. And I don't look at a camera and get afraid because it doesn't matter to me. I don't have the confidence all the time though, when I'm looking back and I'm like, oh gosh, I sounded horrible. Or my husband says, that's not your voice. You had a fake voice. You know, I'm still learning in those areas, but it's all about just going for it. And that's what you did when you swerved. You went for it. And that's what you're doing with your business and every day. And you're with your clients. You're going for it. So before we wrap, I just wanted to touch on the fact that you do have some podcasting experience. And I think it is just the future because so many people are now expecting video, audio, podcasting. And it is this form of media that can really, A, help clients, B, provide more experts into this stratosphere for the press to tap into, and can also help people learn. I mean, they learn so much from long form conversations. So I just wanted your take on podcasting and just your thoughts in general, and tell us a little bit about the podcast you've worked on.
I love podcasting. I love listening to them. I mean, I'm sure as you can probably take away from this conversation, I love all things media. I am just super passionate about media in general. I always have been. My mom used to hate me. I watch TV all the time. She was like, you just need to find a job that you can watch TV all the time. This is all you want to do. And I found a job where I can watch TV all the time. But I think podcasting is great. I think I worked on a podcast with Kim Rittberg. She's the host of Mom's Exit Interview. That is being shifted, I believe, to Exit Interview. And I produced on the back end with her, finding the guests, telling the stories, all of that. But she really is the brains behind the podcast. And Jamie, like, you're the brains behind your podcast. And I think when it comes to podcasting, it takes a lot of work. And so I think that would be my number one thing to keep in mind, is that you do really have to be passionate about it and that it does take a lot of work. And it is, once again, another form of media. And it's your own media channel, so you can tell the stories that you want to tell. So you want to make sure that you're positioning them so that you then can bring on clients or share it on other social channels or use it as a, jumping off point for maybe other types of stories. You really have to be passionate about it, though. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. It is not for the faint of heart. And I would say my expertise is storytelling and producing. I don't know if I would podcast me putting one out there on my own. I think that there are so many other people out there who are doing so many great ones. I think this one's an amazing podcast. I think Kim's is an amazing podcast. The things that I want to talk about, I'd much rather be a guest on a podcast or produce a podcast than personally host one, because it does take a lot of work. And I'm sure you're not going to sit here and say, oh, in order to put on a good podcast, you're not going to just be hitting record and throwing it out there. Like, you're thinking about it and you're taking the time and you're putting together a story. You were even saying before we got on here that you have guests, and the way that you're going to roll them out are going to be strategic and in a way that are telling a story. You're not just bringing people on and throwing out an episode. So keep that in mind. And once again, time is money. So if you do want to do a podcast, go to these people who have great resources, somebody like you, somebody like Kim, who are not only putting out podcasts, but also working with individuals to be able to put out podcasts. Because by saving yourself time, at the end of the day, will eventually, I believe, be able to bring in more money. I think the same goes with PR. I think the same goes for any field that you're not an expert in. So I would say reach out. So I would say if you're interested in doing a podcast, reach out to somebody like you who is doing it.
I love our conversations, and I'm really glad that we've connected. And just so everyone knows, she and I are bold. We're on LinkedIn. That's where we kindled our relationship, is like, we found each other, yep. We connected. It was like, let's get on the phone. Let's get on a Zoom call. We have a lot in common. Let's talk. And I'll tell you, really the hustler mindset a lot of people just need to apply.
I was going to tell you, Jamie, when it comes to the swerving, and honestly, when it comes to just bringing it back full circle and being able to make those swerves, LinkedIn and going all in on LinkedIn, I took a course. It was the first investment that I made with a branding expert. Her name's Kate Ladon, and she was fabulous. She was doing personal branding, and I bit the bullet and spent some money to work with her. I was so nervous. I'd never done anything like that. I didn't even know why I was doing it, honestly. I had these 2 little kids, but something in my gut was like, yes, this is the next move. This is where you're going to swerve. And that changed the trajectory for me. So networking, putting yourself out there, talking, sharing stories, meeting people, and like you said, being bold is the way to swerve. And you never know how things are going to end up. I had no idea what it was going to look like when I left my job as a TV producer in 2014. We're now almost in 2024. So this has been a almost 10-year process of swerving and different paths and figuring it out and saying, yes, this is working. No, this isn't working. I'm going to go all in on work right now. I'm going to step back a little. I'm going to go all in on parenting right now. I'm going to step back and get a little bit more help on that side of things. Like, it didn't happen overnight. And the swerving continues. And I am even right now in a process of swerving and figuring out where to go next. But what is now consistent after these 10 years is that I know that I love media. I know that I love PR, and I know that I love being home and being a mom. And so figuring out the ways to do those 3 things. But the way I do it, I'm always going to be swerving, because sometimes you're going to be more heavily mom. Sometimes you're going to be more heavily working, and it's always going to kind of just be intermingling.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm really glad we got to talk. And for anyone listening, just make sure you check out the description for links so you can get to know Aliza as much as I have. So thank you so much.
And thank you so much for having me. And I really enjoyed it.
That was my conversation with Aliza Friedlander. Be sure to look in the description of this YouTube video or podcast so that you can get a link to all she has to offer. You know what's also down there? A link to the free PDF on how to video podcast. I'm helping you develop your idea into a show, listing out all the potential questions that you should really think through before you decide to move forward. If you do decide to move forward, I hope you use Riverside, and if you do, try to use my link. That is like the one way I am trying to monetize my efforts to help you become more on-cam ready. So if you do click on the link and sign up to Riverside, you're also helping support this podcast. You know what else supports it? Liking this video and subscribing to the channel. So I hope you do that as well. This is all new to me, guys. If you watch the vlogs, you'll see that I am really sharing as I go and trying to learn everything I haven't really been able to tap into as a producer, from content creating for social media platforms to now YouTubing and video podcasting. And I'm trying to show you what I learn as I go so that it can be a little bit easier for you. There are a lot of people out there that will really hype up the high-end products and the high quality audio. And yes, you should go that route, but you don't need to. If you have a great idea and you want to go for it, go for it. I'm here to root you on, and I'm also here to help you become more on-cam ready. So visit my website, oncamready.com, and find me on Instagram at Jamie_the producer or oncamready. That's what I got. So if you haven't seen episode 1 of this video podcast, check it out. It's with Shannon McKinstry. She's a social media guru, and she's helping you maximize your efforts online with minimal effort. She is so great at helping people simplify. So I hope you'll check that out. And again, I'll say it again, be sure to reach out with any questions you have. You can also submit a question for the video podcast. I have episodes recording in October. This is basically you could be seeing this a year from now, but October of 2023, I have some episodes recording, and if you would like to contribute to them, you can also send me a video question. So email me, Jamie@oncamready.com. Thanks again for watching.